This video contains major spoilers for Mario & Luigi Brothership. When Mario & Luigi Brothership was announced, I was casually excited, and by the time it came out, I wasn't really sure what to think of it. It seemed like it would be enjoyable, but not too amazing or anything, and ultimately I think I was right. But it ended up resonating with me far more than I would have ever thought it would, and the reason probably isn't what you'd expect. Brothership released at genuinely the perfect time, and the themes of the game heavily related to real-life events that I had just went through. I've got a lot of gripes about Brothership, and I think maybe if I have time, I'd like to talk about them in a future video. I think it's important to be critical of this game so that the developers know what to improve upon in the next title. Not right now, though. Let's walk through my experience of the game. The game starts in the Lushgreen Sea, and it's pretty boring. It's mostly just simple setup for the rest of the game. It's about 10 hours of tutorials and easy gameplay. It sets the stage for the themes of the game, those being bonds and connections, but it's not too special. Although it does have Twisty Island. The theme of the colorful sea is bonds of friendship. We meet old friends like Starlo and Princess Peach, and make new friends through the Idol Group and Technicky. It's all about making new connections, and it's pretty sweet. It only took 10 hours, but the gameplay is finally getting interesting. There's also Desolate Island, and Lottacoin's Island, and Bitsy Islet. I thought for sure I was gonna start singing. The game still wasn't really resonating with me much, but I was starting to have a good time. But then I beat the Great Lighthouse and the Gloam. Literally everything changed at the Brrrning Sea, and Brothership became a game that I will never forget. First off, before I forget, Brrrning Sea's themes are all about family and love. Chilliam and Bernadette are awesome. Layden and his son suck. Also, Scorching Island. So if you've played the game, Gloam needs no introduction. It's a dark red glowy substance that corrupts all those who are afflicted with it and makes them want to sever their connections and be on their own. For most of the rest of the game, there are a handful of gloamed people across each island, and they all have dialogue about how they hate people and want to cut off from society. And when I first met gloamed citizens, my jaw dropped. Let me explain. All throughout 2024, I dealt with a lot of jealousy. I intensely value strong bonds and friendships, but I feel like I can rarely ever make them, so I end up pretty jealous of the bonds of others. In October, my jealousy got so bad that it would make me physically ill. I won't be getting too personal or detailed about what was going on, but my fear was so strong that I had to take a step back and calm down. But what started as one day of being alone turned into nearly an entire month of solitude. I decided that the only solution to my jealousy was to not have any more what I called attachments, which Brothership describes as connections. This period of isolation didn't fix my issues, but it cut me off from the source of them. It's hard to be jealous of others' bonds when you don't see any of them. Being alone helped me feel better. Kind of. Not fully. When I encountered the gloamed individuals, I took screenshots of a lot of their dialogue because their dialogue was almost exactly the type of thoughts I was thinking during this period. Long story short, I ended my solitude in November and went back to normal. And I think that process of returning to normal is what ended up breaking me, and I'm still dealing with the aftermath of it all. I think I started the script back in mid-January, but I'm still dealing with it now, writing this in late February. But of course, a lot of the aftermath was strongest in November, when I was playing through Brothership. The themes of the game correlated heavily to what I felt during my isolation, and what I had learned as well. I would be incredibly curious to know how I would have reacted to the game if it came out earlier, and if I had played it when everything was going on in October. Anyway, back to the game. The Gulchrock Sea is my favorite section of the game. The themes are all about off and on friendships. And it's also about the bonds of Bowser's minions. There's not really much to say, but I love Bowser and it was awesome. And at the end of the sea, Mario and Luigi get stranded. Bonds are important. Friendship is needed. I realized these things on my own, but Brothership ended up reinforcing that for me. It was confirmation of all that I ended up learning from my experience, and when I got to this point of the game, man, ending back up at the place we started it all, it all came full circle. That solemn calmness from the introduction of the game showed itself once again. La, da, 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 la. The gloam parts of the game happened to relate to the situation I went through. It reflected the thoughts I had been feeling and reminded me that isolating myself was wrong. But the game didn't truly resonate with me until this point, and it's not even really what the game had to say about anything. It's just what I felt when playing this section. This song in the background is one of my favorites in the game. When I hear this song, I think of loneliness, but it's not the hopeless, full of despair loneliness. It's a feeling of contentment or peace. It's a sadness, but it's a reflective sadness. It's knowing that even though everything is falling apart, there is hope. And it's exactly the feelings I felt after ending my month-long isolation. I don't have anything profound to say about this. It's not easy to explain what all I feel from this part of the game, but it's when the game really struck a chord with me. So on this island, it's revealed that Zokket is actually Connie's mentor, the botanist Cozette. And I haven't mentioned Zokket up to this point, but I'm gonna talk about him for a minute. Zokket is a pretty boring villain. I like him, but there's not really that much going on with him. Toward the end of the game, they try to make it seem like he's got some interesting motivations, but it never really does anything with it. Cozette being Zokket is cool, but the game never really explains why she became him. And it's pretty much just hand-waved away by telling us that she was just brainwashed. When Connie asks the Great Conductor why it happened, he suggests that Reclusa latched onto a weakness inside of her heart. But that's all we're told. But it doesn't really make any sense from what we see about Cozette. She's always shown to be nice and extremely caring for Connie and the bonds of Concordia, so to suddenly flip and go full-on with loneliness is bizarre. Or is it? Guys, Cozette is just like me! This is just my own interpretation of the situation, so please don't act like this is an objective explanation or anything. I'm just relating her to my own thoughts and feelings. As a botanist, Cozette was in charge of monitoring the bonds of Concordia and tending to the Unitree. It's a pretty big role and it requires her to care a lot. She's placed high expectations upon herself. Her time is fully dedicated to helping other people. At the end of the game, Cozette rushes off to face Reclusa alone. She says she has to do it, even though literally no one expects her to. She looks at all the stuff she did when she was brainwashed and she sees it as her own personal failures. She sees herself as a failure and she can't forgive herself for it. And she fully acknowledges the power of bonds, but yet she still decides that she has to atone for her failures on her own. But that's illogical. She should know that she needs to work with others. But she's afraid. She's afraid of her friends getting hurt. She doesn't want Connie to know her plan. She refuses help from Mario and Luigi. She is taking this burden upon herself. She is not accepting any help. And that's the darkness in her heart. In my mind, Zokket isn't Cozette. Zokket is that feeling inside of her that she is a burden. That feeling that because people rely so heavily upon her, that she will ultimately fail and hurt them. She cares so much about bonds, but her solution to her strife is to be fully alone. If nobody relies on her, if nobody cares about her, if she's alone, she won't be able to hurt them. And when Reclusa latched onto her, he allowed those feelings to manifest and consume her. Zokket is the manifestation of the belief that everyone would be better off if I was alone. And this interpretation also explains why Zokket is a guy while Cozette is a girl. Zokket isn't Cozette, he's a personification of her negative emotions. Now, obviously, I'm not really all that similar to Cozette, but I've had similar feelings. When I was in Solitude in October, I developed the desire for my friends to stop caring about me. I figured it would be easier if I was forced to be alone, if my bonds were severed. To me, it was a logical solution to my predicament. But of course, I was wrong. I had acknowledged that bonds were important, yet I convinced myself that I would be fine without them. Anyway, that was my interpretation of Cozette and Zokket. I'll get back to the rest of the game now. So after Conductor Island, we go to Jellyfish Island to recruit a Daphne. And if you were wondering, yes, I also hate a Daphne. By the way, Jellyfish Island slams! Anyway, the rest of the game isn't really that relevant. I think Reclusa is pretty awesome. I like his stupid laugh. The stuff regarding Reclusa doesn't mirror my thoughts as much as Zokket's do, but it still rings true. I wish they would have done more with this last-second plot addition because the virtual versus physical fulfillment message is pretty interesting. If you want to hear more about that, I'd recommend giving this video a watch. Mario and Luigi Brothership connects in almost all the right places by Aram Alex. It talks about some of the missed potential regarding the themes of the game, and it has some really interesting points that I agree with. Anyway, as I said, the message here rings pretty true. I value honesty and authenticity quite strongly. I'd rather live in a sad life than a happy yet fabricated fantasy. Wake up, it's time to leave Dreamland! Reclusa says that without bonds, you can't do anything, and while that's not entirely true, it is meaningful. From my solitude, I realized that I can't do anything on my own. I need friends. I've always valued bonds and friendship, but in October I forgot. But Brothership reminded me of those values, and it strengthened my belief in the power of bonds. It may be sappy, but the power of friendship is real, and together we can do things that we could have never done alone. So this video was kind of a mess, but that's kind of fitting considering my mind is a mess too. I just wanted to share a unique reason why I love Brothership. I've got lots and lots of issues with the game, but it was still worth playing and it left an incredible impact upon me. Thanks for watching, and hopefully my next video will be put together a lot better. Bye-bye! Every time I see the word glomed, I want to read it as glomed, and I have no idea why.
Heyo!